Hey, what is up, everybody? Ryan here, and welcome to our Reflections podcast. Hey, I wanted to kind of share something that I have, gone through recently, and then something that I had learned that I just remembered it was super helpful for me, and maybe it'd be helpful for you too. I don't know, but so a couple weeks ago, actually 2 weeks ago on Tuesday night, my dad died, and he's my stepdad, who was probably the most significant man in my life. I knew him since I was 6 years old. My mom and him started to date when I was 6 years old, and he was very present and prominent in my life in many, many ways. And the point of this podcast is not to go into all that, but it was deeply impactful. And actually, what's surprising is it was way more impactful than I even thought. Well, I was with him, with my sister, my brother, and he's actually my stepbrother and my sister, and we were there the last few days. We flew down to Texas to be with him, and it was very emotional, moving, meaningful. You know, when I got there, he was deeply medicated and asleep. And so, but we spent many days with him and praying over him, talking with him, watching football with him. And my mom on her feet, I swear, and not sleeping for like several straight days. It was really strange, but you know how we get. And, but here's what happened. So I flew home, he died on the Tuesday night. I flew home Thursday. And when I got home, and I'd been sleeping on my parents' pull-out couch, and it was like the worst bed I've ever slept on, and not the worst, but one of the top. And so none of us had slept really well, and just out of sorts, out of our schedules, weird, and obviously with him dying, it was just very. And it's hard to know how to process all of this stuff when it's happening, and even later, it's like, what is this? What was it? And sometimes I would argue we humans don't do the best job at like letting our emotions kind of in or letting them out. And no one's taught us. And especially if you're a man, sometimes generally the culture doesn't do a good job of allowing men to express their emotions or feel them or know how to do that. No one knows, I feel like men have two emotions, anger or nothing. Like there's either like chill or they're angry. And reality, there's like way more than just those two. I mean, this seems like intuitive, but we generally only see or feel or think of zero or angry. And so anyway, here's what happened. So I came back on Thursday, and then my birthday was on Friday, which also made it kind of weird. And then me and Katie celebrated, and we got a hotel downtown. And then on Sunday, Katie flew down to Texas to be with my mom to help with logistics and some other organizational things. And so she was gone for a few days. And then the following Wednesday, she flew home. Late at night, I'm driving down to the airport to pick her up in Minneapolis. And to be frank, like earlier in the day at 8 o'clock, I fell asleep. I never fall asleep this early, but I was tired, and I was tired for all kinds of reasons. One, it's fall here in Minnesota, and the days get shorter pretty quickly, and it gets darker pretty early. And so I generally, in the fall, I start getting tired earlier. It's like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'm like, what time is it? Is it midnight? What's going on? I'm so tired. And that doesn't last for long, but then your body adjusts. But anyway, so it was that, and then, I don't know, probably all the things I've been going through. And so at 8 o'clock, I laid down and closed my eyes and fell asleep, and woke up an hour later, like, I need to go get Katie from the airport. So I boogied down there and got her, and so I had slept for an hour, and I was like in this fog. And sometimes when you're tired or just waking up, it's like there's a very thin veil between you and reality and your emotions. And it's all kind of right there bubbling on the surface. And this is why, addicts or alcoholics are told to be careful when you're tired. It's hungry, angry, lonely, or tired of the four. HALT, HALT. So be careful when you're any one of those four things, because you're vulnerable, but also those are decent times to kind of like begin to ask good questions. And anyway, so I'm tired. I'm pick her up, and we're driving back together, and we had some great conversation about my dad and my mom. And Katie loved my dad, my stepdad, because he was so good to her, and he called her his favorite daughter-in-law. And he would say the Spanish phrase for it because he loved to talk Spanish, so he would always call her that. And she loved him because she tells me that she felt like he loved her unconditionally. And that's a gift, if you have that. Anyway, so she started playing these voice messages from him that she had saved on her phone. And here I am driving home from Minneapolis in the car in the dark with my wife, and I just started like crying. And then it got like really intense crying. Like, I mean, like crying, like I wasn't just tearing up, and I wasn't just dropping a few tears. I started like crying, and Katie was like, "Are you all right?" And I was not all right, and I don't think I knew it. And I started like crying even more intensely to the point where I thought, I'm gonna have to pull over. Like I legit almost pulled over. And then Katie goes, "Hey, do you want to pull over?" And I almost did, but I kind of like I didn't. And it's sort of the moment came, and then it went. And then several more times on the way home, I cried again, not as intense as that one time. And then the next day at work, I was at work and sitting at my desk, and I just was like overwhelmed with emotion and just started crying in my office again. And it was as though like I had this cavern of emotions deep down in my body or something. And this, my dad dying was like someone kicking me off the cliff into this big cavern of like sadness and sorrow, but all these emotions, and I was like plunging head first into them. And so anyway, here's what it reminded me of, because here's what you do in those moments. What I would argue, you know, as a pastor, as a man, here's what you got to do. You got to let them come, you know, and whatever the emotion is, you got to let it come. And they don't last forever. You know, I'm not going to cry forever. But we do a terrible job at this. We usually try to stuff it or get our stuff together and wipe our eyes and try to be strong and be courageous. And I think I'd been doing that for a couple of weeks, trying to do that. But you've got to let them come and let them take over, and for a moment anyway, you know. And if you're around somebody that can hold that space for you, better. That's all the better, you know. Because I learned this, like, you know, imagine you're driving a big bus on a road, and that road is like your life and the life you want to live, and the things you value, and like the life of righteousness. And by that I mean like just like right living. If you're like, here's how I want to live my life, I want to be this kind of person, and here's how I want to, you know, spend my days, and that's the road you're on. You drive on that road, and that'll lead you to the kind of, you know, this right way of living, and everything on the side is kind of like off the path, you know, and destruction and hurt and pain, whatever. Well, your emotions will, they show up on occasion, if you can imagine this, and they're like little passengers for your bus, and they want to get on the bus. And they're like knocking on the door. You can imagine them knocking on the door and asking for a ride. And many of us are like, no, I don't have time for you, or I'm a man, I can't handle, you know, like sadness. I have no seats for you on the bus, sadness, or sadness is weakness, or whatever. And so we don't let these emotions on the bus. And well, here's what happens. Generally, the emotions, they want a ride. They need a ride. And because they're a part of you, they're down there, and they're a part of your life and your being and your experience of life. Life with no emotions is not life. It's something strangely bizarre, and so they got to get on. And so if you don't let them on, they tend to get kind of like upset about that, you know. And if you can imagine like these picketers that you see on these highways where they picket and they link arms and they go across the road, blocking the road, and it's sort of annoying. And these cars, like, what do we do? You know, and they get angry and they honk and they drive around them, and it can get kind of ugly. But yeah, your emotions will kind of link arms and they will block the path of the bus that you're driving. And so what you're forced to do is like, forget this, and if you double down, like, I'm not letting you on, you veer off the path, and then now you're off the path and you're down in the weeds, and your bus can't drive in the weeds, and you're living this life that was not the one you wanted, you know what I mean? And so you become somebody you're not, or live in a way you didn't want to live, and because the emotions don't go away. This is like obviously the old saying: if you stuff them, they'll just come out some other way. And this is why people kick the dog when they come home from work. They're deeply sad because maybe they're at work and they're living a life that is utterly boring, or not what they want to, or they're unhappy with their marriage, or they regret things from their past, or they long for something more, or they, you know, their boss is just a jerk and it kills their soul. These kinds of things, and if you don't let those emotions in and experience them and go into this cavern, then you come home and you kick the dog, or you yell at the kids, or you take it out on your wife, or whatever your things are, and you veer off the path, and you don't live the life that you were supposed to live or meant to live. And so what I want to say is, however you can today and in the weeks ahead, is let those emotions come. And if you can do it with people that love you and that you love, that can hold space for you, then do that. I mean, there's obviously there's appropriate times and inappropriate times. I mean, as a pastor, I'm not going to get up on Sunday morning and like lose it. I mean, in some cases, maybe I should, and it would be good for the people to see that. But some folks can't handle that or carry that for you. But find friends that can, and you know, you can do your thing in front of them, and you can cry and weep, or yell and scream, or shake your fist at the moon or at the clouds, or pound sand, or whatever you got to do. But let them out, because if you don't let them out, they'll come out another way. They'll come out sideways, or they'll block the pathway, and you wind up driving off the path. So anyhow, love you guys, and talk to you soon. Peace. Hey, if you enjoy this show, I'd love to have you share it with some friends. And don't forget, you are always welcome to join us in person at Central in Elk River at 8:30, which is our liturgical gathering, or at 10 o'clock, our modern gathering. Or you can check us out online at clcelkriver.org. Peace.